Hello, hello, and welcome to this podcast, Tea with Halo, which is the podcast of the Enchanted Academy. I am Halo Quinn, your host, and I am a pagan author, storyteller, and a fairy witch. And if you're watching on the video, you can see my beautiful fairy bluebell woods taken from not far from here, this part of the landscape. So I have been exploring magic and teaching and working on, well, that's to put it bluntly, my mission is to re-enchant the world. And so I'm curious, I'm always curious about how other people are working in that, how other people are engaging in magic and art and all of the ways in which we enchant the world and remember that the world is enchanted. And so I'm absolutely delighted to be able to invite on to this show, this podcast, whatever you want to call it, someone who I knew a very long time ago, who I was in university with, and who was the first person to call me a priestess. I remember this very, very vividly. You rolled up to me on your rollerblades, and I swear you had the flower in your hair, and you told me that you always thought of me as a priestess, and then you skated off, and something in me went, oh, huh. So, welcome, Danny DaVoid. Please tell our listeners about yourself and your journey and how you've come to be here.
Well, Halo, thank you for sharing such a beautiful memory. Um, yeah, I think that's yeah. I think with say we yeah, I see that. I see that as a real strong archetype in you. Like it's clear. It's clear. It's kind of how did I get here? Um, uh,
Put you right on the spot now, haven't I?
yeah,
How would you like to introduce yourself? How would you like people to know you?
so hi, my name's Danny. Um, how can I'm a kind of I'm a former monk that is developing into like an artist that sees kind of like this enchantment as a form of prayer. And so what um there's there are a lot of things in the world that are kind of um yeah, I want my kind of like practice to be like an artistic practice to be spirit led, if that makes sense. There are so many wonderful, refined, talented, well practiced artists out there that create the most intricate things, but it's kind of like the the end product is kind of like in mind before it's been created, and it's made with like reason and rationale. And so I kind of like want to be in these spaces where um, one is in direct communion with like, one is inspired like with spirit, and then you kind of like allow that to make its way into the world through through whatever mediums one has kind of like access to. So it's so that comes from like a devotional practice. I was a monk for 6 years doing like Bhakti yoga and karma yoga, which is essentially work and worship. So like singing in Sanskrit and shoveling lots of shit. I'm just gonna breathe and settle into us being here. Yeah.
That was at Scandavale, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah. So Lord Subramaniam or Kartikeya or Shamuka. These are all different names for the same aspect. Um, there's an ashram in West Wales called Scandervale. So the veil is like a spear, and it also sounds like valley, but like it's VEL as the spear, although the ashram is spelled Vale, and this is like a South Indian and Sri Lankan aspect that's very similar to like Archangel Michael. That same kind. It's like it's a bit like a spiritual boot camp, the ashram, and this veil is like this. It's the symbol of divine authority. It's so I used to look after the elephant there, and it was a place for me to reorient my consciousness into like this cool flesh suit. Um, it's like when we were at university, I studied philosophy and was had a lot going on in my personal life. Um, had a lot of processing to do, and also enjoyed to party and explore consciousness. And so whilst we were studying there, I ended up going through quite a few traumatic like experiences within my psyche, and like was kind of sectioned under the Mental Health Act and put on antipsychotics for a little while. But going to the ashram for say 6 years, having like a very strict diet, like a vegetarian diet of blessed food, like up every morning at 5 a.m. to be in temple and in temple 3 times a day at least. And then like um serving life. So the dharma of Scandavale is to serve life. And so there's like a hospice with 6 overnight beds. There are kind of like birds that are brought up before like Christmas and they live in the birdie field, and like deer that have been rescued. There's water buffalo. There was a back many moons ago. There was a case of like Shambo, who was like a bull that was killed by the state authorities, DEFRA, because of like trying to contain tuberculosis. So yeah, that may be a way that someone would have heard of Scandavale.
Yeah, it that particular case hit went all over the news because if I remember rightly, Shambo was being looked after by Scandavale. They'd rescued him, or he was one of their bulls, and Defra was like, "Well, he's sick. He needs to be put down." And Scandavale was like, "Well, no." Actually, if we keep him quarantined and isolated, he won't infect anyone else, any of the other cows or bulls, and he will recover. And we don't need to kill him for this to be okay. And there was this huge clash between the sort of spiritual, life affirming, like service to life space that holds that, and that went that we can look after this bull, and the authorities who were following the kind of rigid, like, this is how you deal with this, also trying to protect life but also profit, trying to, but in a very two very different ways. And so that went, and I remember seeing the pictures of the monks and the community at Scandavale sort of sat round the space where Shambo was when it came to that final time. Um, and now maybe those pictures were staged just for the thing, or maybe it was that, but it just represented the way in which this spiritual community was saying even this life is precious, and if we can look after this life, if we can look after even Shambo, like, then we should.
But they're definitely. This happened before my time living there, but there were just devotions. They were singing their hearts out to different aspects of like divine consciousness, and yeah, there's the it certainly wouldn't have been staged, and yeah, I mean the kind of the something that I was was a kind of like a moral question that came up for me whilst I was living there, was that so that every kind of like life is given the opportunity to experience that life in its fullest. Like the philosophy is within the kind of like container of reincarnation and karma. So the idea, or the is that we're like transmigratory souls, like kind of like, and we take our kind of like karma with us. And so if you restrict a life, if you stop a life being able to live out the fullness of its incarnation within the body it's in, it still has to go through those experiences within the next body. So it's like you end up with like lots of kind of like varying levels of consciousness within different human beings, and like, or like, yeah. And so or that there's a lot of things that people need to live out, and if you end a life. Now I'm not sure whether I prescribe to this. I think it leads to it leads to like kind of like really great dharmic action. um I'm not sure if, so I'm thinking like if where I align with kind of like destroying animals or euthanasia, like it's a kind of like um it's an interesting topic, and how like I think there's a certain alignment, and and uh and and it's like by performing certain acts, one is eligible for different experiences. I know that's very kind of like obvious, but also within a kind of like not unseen sense. Like we do ritual because it's yeah, do we do ritual because it's the language of the unconscious and symbolism, and this is the way we can interact with it in the world, or do we do ritual because there's a whole spectrum of unseen beings interacting with us? Like, where you know, it's does it matter? Does it work? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So for me, there's you're pulling out this really interesting piece about that. Um, well, there's two things there. It's that we've got to be a bit careful in these conversations about if you have reincarnation, you come in with certain karma, and then you're then eligible for certain experiences, right? That sometimes that's taken to be a, well, it's your fault if you're having these shitty experiences because you earned it last lifetime. It's a bit of victim blaming. But from what you're saying there is this piece that often gets missed when we're reading it from a Western perspective, or reading into it, listening to this. And that is that each person has an eligibility for a full life with a certain set of experiences and a life lived to the full in that space, but that it can be impeded by other people. And so those shitty experiences that can impact on us, and that can be done to us, aren't because we've earned them, but it's rather because we're being stopped from having that full experience that we're here to have. Does that, am I understanding that nuance a bit better?
yeah. I think I think it's the kind of like the interplay of like of like will and individual karmas.
Yeah.
Uh, but like so yeah, this was a apologies. I'm kind of like my mind's a little bit abstract at the moment. I kind of perhaps shouldn't be apologizing either. It's good. It's nice to be here.
I think it's an interesting thing that particularly I don't know how much it applies in other cultures in other languages, but in from a British perspective, we tend to apologize and say I'm sorry before we explain something. And we're not actually necessarily uh, like being sad about it. We're trying to kind of go, oh, there's some, I realize I'm not being as articulate as I'd like to be. I'm going to mark that by saying, oh, I apologize. But I still want to be, it's actually just a kind of mention of respect to you to go, well, I want to try and communicate these things, but I haven't got the words yet. So I'm just going to let you know that I haven't got the words yet and I'm still trying my best.
I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah, and that's totally where I'm at with it. Like it's like if you look at kind of uh Patanjali's like Yoga Sutras. And yoga isn't just about kind of like stretching, and yoga's union with the divine. But in these sutras, in Patanjali's, there's like right action, eating the particular diet. These kind of like, and so a moral act like that qualifies someone like or an organization on a vibrational level to exist in a certain space, and so that's like a that's like an astral tattoo. There's it's like these performance these acts, these kind of trials are yeah, like kind of like within one's karma as like as like an astral tattoo. Let's just call it that, because that communicates what I'm trying to to say. That's yeah, that's
Hmm.
whether how it's like walking through portals. It's just like each like the event or the action is like a portal that just like goes off like a bell and says, okay, like what's the next eligibility.
It's like your security clearance gets changed, so you get access to different areas of experience.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And within that realm of experience, all sorts of things can happen. But
yeah.
you've got access to an arena.
And
Mm.
service builds up like a battery of grace in order to kind of like like a well house like that. That's the kind of like the kind of like the mechanics of the monastic path in service as grace, to build up a well or a battery, and then kind of like yeah, like acts to communicate eligibility. uh,
Mm.
that's yeah. I, mm,
So
sorry.
there was something that you also said in there. There was this beautiful like little doorway about why do we do ritual? Okay, is it to communicate symbolically with the unconscious, or is it to communicate with the world of spirits, or both? And does it matter? And it made me think about what you were talking about at the beginning, which is art as magic and the parallels between art and ritual. And for me, I see this really clearly in storytelling and performance, right? So this is why I've written about how those performance skills apply to ritual spaces, but how also the ritual state applies to the performance state. Because when we're storytelling or performing or creating art, we are both communicating with our own unconscious. We're exploring that, unpacking that, connecting. We're communicating with other human beings, but we're also communicating with the other than human and the spirit world, like from my perspective. And so in that space, we're kind of opening up into that realm of connection. And so I'd love to hear you talk. So that's what it made me think of. And I'd love to hear you talk a bit more about that. Like what's ritual for, and where do you see that maybe connecting in with art and art as prayer and the practice, the devotional spirit-led art that you were talking about?
I guess I'd love to talk about my practice. Really, I've got I practice. It's kind of inspired by like Divine Ridiculous, or is it who are kind of a theatre troupe that work with like kind of the tarot, kind of lots of elements of occultism, clown, performance, like think kind of, yeah, like kind of like shamanic tarot clown. Kind of like doesn't really do. It's kind of like so as part of the practice, say it's like I have a couple of masks hanging up behind me. This is one of my favorites, the tower.
You have a mask for the tower.
Yeah, so I kind of like I've been working on a little project which is like the topography of tarot, and there's a building in Berlin called Topography of Terror, and it's a museum to all of the dark shit that happened here, and it's built on the old offices of the SS. So that's all been there's a museum there called Topography of Terror. So in Berlin, doing the Topography of Tarot, I've done 3 cards so far, and that's kind of like creating using kind of the way of the tarot by Jodorowsky. Jodorowsky's a Chilean film director that made El Topo and Holy Mountain, and like he's the guy that there's the documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune. Like he brought a lot the Hollywood sci-fi crew together when he was going to make Dune. I think spent £1 million on like getting Dali in it for a second or something. It's like it's this wild thing. But yeah, in the way he's got some incredible books. One is the Psychomagic, a Healing Art, or that's one of his documentaries. And this is where like Jodorowsky is like talking about the language of the unconscious and bringing it into the world, like kind of playing with symbolism. So it's like Gnostic theatre, I guess. So yeah, the practice is kind of like creating. So I've been working with the Major Arcana, creating like 22 masks for 22 spaces within Berlin. So this mask I've kind of like performed at the TV tower, which is like the tallest structure, and beneath it is like a kind of a fountain to Neptune. And so within the Marseille deck, which is the deck that I use, it's called the House of God, the tower. So it's like this, and it's almost like the body. Like the body is where the divine dwells. And so it's like, so I kind of create like an altar to the tower, write some poetry, bring it into dream, see what comes out. Kind of like, how does the mask want to be? Like, how can I like in voodoo or voodoo, like this idea of possession. Possession is a slaver term. Like this, you ride with the spirits. You're not possessed by the spirits. Possession is like, yeah, more fucking white supremacy. We don't want more of that, but
No.
you know, it's fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, so kind of like creating. You know, I'm only 3 into it. Creating and like kind of like inviting the aspect to kind of like to play with you, to ride with you. So it's like, so I kind of my way into it was through clown. Like clown, you know, if we look at the tarot, like the fall is the first on the journey, but it's like a kind of a practice of inviting in the different spirits of the arcana to ride with you and see what messages they might have. So it's like, how can I invite the tower in as oracle for this particular space? Like, how does the tower want to, maybe not oracle, but how can I invite the tower into my body? How can I embody the tower, and how can I bring that into the space? So like Berlin TV Tower was, you know, is now like I have a few places in the world where I can relate to the tower as, you know, as the house of God, and it's an easily accessible landmark. And then if doing ritual in these spaces as well, then it's like you forget what you did and what the intent was, but you always see the tower. So it's constantly working, and it has that break, you know. That's within my magical practice. That's something that it took me a long time to work out. How do I break from the desire or the intent? And that clown allowed me to do that. because it's just that it's just we're just playing games. It's just silly.
You're by breaking from the intent. Do you mean the like you kind of have an intention when you're working out what you're going to do, but then once you get there, you don't want to have that hold you and dictate the interactions and the occurrence. You want to actually make space for the experience,
Uh,
or is it
what
some? Do you mean something else?
I meant specifically for kind of like for like same um affecting changes, affecting changes either within oneself or within the environment. Both, like, there's no difference. There's no difference. So I don't have to keep having that conversation. Um, like for uh, I lost the thread.
It's that I asked you about that. What you mean by the break in the?
So if I kind of like keep on fixating on my intent,
Mhm.
then I kind of like it becomes too much of a cross to bear. It becomes a hurdle. Like the desiring of the thing is like keeps it away from me. But if I kind of create an act in which some weird foolish clown act that is some way going to drop this shit into my subconscious, or some fairy's going to see it and feel like, hey, I haven't seen that before, that's weird, I might tag along with this one, like help them out a little bit, then yeah, that's what I mean by break. That it's done and I forgot about it, and it's not going to work unless I do forget about it. So how can I?
How can you let it go into the world and be? Yeah. So I just for people who are listening on the audio, I wanted to describe what I can see. So you've picked up this mask. Is it can you actually wear it on your head? Because it looks
Yeah,
huge. It looks like a light, almost like a lightning strike going through a head piece covered in broken mirror. So it's almost like a macabre disco ball. It's gorgeous.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's slightly unsettling, but it's reflecting all of the parts of the world in this kind of fragmented sort of way.
So yeah, you were right with the lightning strike. So it is a lightning strike going through the head, and then you are on that's one of the parts of the tower that I want to call in most, that kind of like that spark of divine inspiration,
Mm.
the force. Yeah, do you want to see my death one?
Yeah. So that lightning strike. So if the tower is the body, the house of God, and presumably in that context, then the body is the house and the God is the divine spark. And then you've got that lightning strike is the divine inspiration coming in and waking up and connecting with
Yeah,
that yeah.
it's like how
Beautiful.
like power of association. How can one create a kind of an outfit, or like or what? It's 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 a paraphernalia essentially, but one that is deep rooted within me. There's like such a symbiosis between the prop and my essence, wrapped up in the kind of, yeah, the it's yeah uh the the art of the intent. Yeah, this is the intentional act is the intentional act is the magic of the work. Like it's not quite, his death.
Ooh, okay. So what have we? There's a black kind of it's a slightly shiny, slightly glossy black, with almost like a beak with white dots along it, and then these great big ears. They remind me of rabbit ears, but they're very angular, and then white hair down the back. So it makes me think of old man Saturn. But the eyes are almost, they're kind of marked on in white dots. And to me, they look slightly sad in a kind sort of way.
Nice.
Mm,
So the ears are like, the kind of like the death card has the scythe on it.
of
So
course.
but like harvesting, right? So it's like that, like death is connection to like ancestors, and like harvesting, uh, um, like cutting off the bits of ourselves that are, yeah, just like harvesting. Don't have to cut anything off those. Um, so yeah, so I was kind of like, that was the first one that I did was the death mask, and I was like, so I go out, like the term derive, so just going out on a little wander and seeing
Um,
where this is being open to like this, the flow of the city, and seeing where one wants to be taken. And so it's like I was going past this space, like there's a big road that runs through the center of Berlin where the TV tower is, and you have Brandenburg Gate and Tiergarten. It's like I think this was the road that this many militaries must have marched down this road. It's like, the there's some cool places to do ritual at all along this route. Um, and so I was going past this one of the spaces. So the TV tower is there, and I've done the chariot at Brandenburg Gate. But then there's this Soviet War memorial, and I didn't quite know what it was, but there's like 3,000 Soviet soldiers buried there. And so I'm kind of like going past, it's like, oh yeah, death. Like I kind of wanted like death wants to be here. And it's just like, oh fuck. Like there's like 3,000 dead soldiers here. So it's like, so death offered some incense to them and prayed to some tanks. That was interesting. So trying to find like movements, like what, like building up an association with the particular spirit that you're working with. And so it's like death wanted to put, like I wanted to put my hands up. Like I didn't, that seemed like death was imminent. Kind of like there's a picture of a big Soviet figure with a gun, and then there's two tanks outside as well. All of these names on this plaque, and it was just like, yeah, death. I put on the mask and I prayed to some tanks, and it was just like, what? Yeah, how can we interact with the spaces that we're subject to in a novel way that does re-enchant them, or does like make us break the spells of the kind of like the realities that other people are enforcing upon us.
yeah. This is all like, it sounds to me, the way I'd phrase it is like that your practice is deeply rooted in relationship with yourself, with the place, with the archetypes, the powers, the magics of the tarot in this instance, and seeking out conversation and transformation through conversation. Um, this is what I'm hearing. Please tell me if it doesn't resonate with you, or if there's something I'm missing.
Yeah, I think that was like a big kind of like impulse. And when I've started kind of investigating like magic and spirituality, it's like my kind of like parents died when I was quite young. My adopted mum died when I was like 17 or so. And so it's just like, one, it was like, I don't know what's going on, and like to investigate everything. And the other was like, yeah, kind of like connection. Like I wanted to, or communication. Like it's like I wanted to. Sure, there was a part of me that wanted to, it's like I started working in an occult bookstore when I was like, so we had like Ouija boards and tarot decks and crystal balls. So it's like, there was a part of me that wanted to communicate with like the spirits of dead people. And so yeah, definitely kind of like feeding into like what one can connect to. Uh,
Mm.
yeah,
You,
fundamentally,
sorry.
fundamentally, we all want connection, and I guess. Um, I'm happy to find it in like really well embodied human beings.
Yeah. There's a few points you've mentioned clown, and I follow a lady who does clown in 90 seconds. She talks about different aspects of it, and her name, oh, Kendall Savage is her name. I follow her on Instagram, and she never actually shows any clips of her performing clown because she said, oh, it's something that is living and in the moment. It doesn't transfer to the video very well, like the way that she does it. It's, you'd be missing something if you tried to watch it. But anyway, the reason I mention her is because I've noticed that she does this, and I've heard you doing this as well, using clown, the word clown, not as a noun, but as a verb, but not quite as a verb. It's like clown is, yeah, the way that you structure it in the sentence gives it some weight. There's something to it that is something different to what we mean when we say, oh, I'm going to go and perform as a clown. I'm going to pretend to be a clown. I'm going to clown about. It's more closer to that last one than it is. So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I I can't like I want to quick like one of the most profound moments of like the one of my biggest like realizations or awakenings landing that like this one of these watermark kind of like moments was in clown for the first time and just like I had this swimming costume on, some balloons for breasts, clown nose, like a wig, like I was ridiculous. And then there I was in front of everyone, and, and it was on this kind of week-long workshop with Divine Ridiculous, like tarot, like playing Anna, and then and oh, this is ending soon. Like I've made like these beautiful connections, and I'm gonna have to go home in a couple of days. Like this container that we've created isn't gonna be there, and I realized that and looked at everyone. Everyone was like so beautiful, and I started crying, and it was just like, and it was hilarious. But it was like this real, like this moment of like pure vulnerability, and me just like really being there with everyone and feeling it, like feeling everything. That was clown. That was clowning. Just like this idea of like sacred clown or like for like I see like the I want to kind of like profane clown. I want to do profane clown. But yeah, just the capacity to like really be present, and then kind of like the emergent moments that happen when your imagination can play out in that space and everyone's there and you can like feel into their reactions. Oh, I find it funny. It's just like, oh, does this, very slowly. So is this gonna make you have a laugh? So, oh no, okay, I move on to the next thing, but kind of like very present. There's not that I have no motive other than to kind of like find the funny, like find the joy,
mm,
just follow the joy, and that's a shared experience. Except I'm the kind of I'm mining for it. It's like where is it in the space? It's like where does my clown find joy? I find it in dancing, like a little dance. It's like things blowing in the wind, and like it's like just very simple things like the yeah bring joy into the space.
that's anyone listening to that might like that hasn't anyone listening to that that thinks of magic as something that must be very serious and done by the book and very proper might find it very difficult to recognize in it. But there is something so precious and so magical in what you're describing, in that space of finding the funny and finding the joy. And I'm just hearing you talking about that being present and being again in relationship, being with the other people that are there with the responses, and seeking out those pieces of joy, because that joy is a moment of connection. For that's how it feels to me. It's a moment of connection. And that, were you talking about that when you felt you were present and vulnerable and able to cry, and that was clown too. It's like that, being fully human and fully in that moment with other people. And that's that space, and with yourself as well. And that space to me is where we find the magic in the world, where we reconnect to it, where we remember that it is part of us always, when we're actually fully ourselves. And so it's just hearing you talk about that piece of clown that people so often in the mundane world associate with just entertainment and silliness, and reminding us of that, what it actually means to be a clown.
How can you channel joy into the space? It's like, so I'm working on props at the moment. You know, I spent 6 years in a very amazing temple. I learned some incredible things about ritual and performance, like combine the elements with sacred objects. Like we had like relics of the Buddha. Like there's some like really fucking cool shit, like these incredible icons and within these places of power. And so like, how can I, as a clown, now that I know kind of like the theater of temple, like use my rubber chicken with a plastic bag around it to cleanse the space? You know, it's doable. Like once you know it, and people understand it. So my game, I'm out there. My game is I'm fucking cleansing the space, holding the space, trying to bring joy into it. But like people, yeah, trying to channel joy, trying to cleanse the space, trying to hold the space. Or not trying, like doing those things, but that's my game. But you know, I just see someone like twirling a rubber chicken in a plastic bag around. It's funny, but you know, there's this parallel of like, well, yeah, we kind of having one's internal games as well. I used to do when I left the ashram, I started doing support work. I was kind of like supporting adults with learning disabilities kind of access the community, and kind of clowning came out of that because I was with people that were non-verbal and like very autistic and couldn't really interact with the space without someone there. And so for us to come into clown and then use that as a bridge to make connection between myself, between the person I'm supporting, and the world that they're experiencing, and like the world with them, like to be that kind of like clown as a connecting force for everyone to experience joy within that kind of like nexus. Like that's fucking magic.
Yeah, that's powerful magic. And you're reminding me as you talk of this, if we think about the archetype of the fool, of the court jester, right? And I don't know how true this is historically, but the idea that I found many people have, and that I have, of the court jester is someone who can speak truth to power, can bring that silliness in, and that fun and that playfulness in ways that shake things up, that disrupts drama, that clear the space. And there's this piece here about the jester and the fool in the king's court. And I'm reminded of something that Sarah Mastros said in a class about Jupiter, right? So Jupiter is the archetypal king. Prior to Jupiter, Saturn was the king, because holding that boundary. So death was the rule of the edges, the agriculture, all of the harvest, right? But nowadays, in our culture, in empire, the king is Jupiterian, is Jupiter, the patriarch pushed to an extreme. pushed to an unhealthy extreme. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I now have this image of the structures of our empire infused world, which is damaging in so many ways and that has spread across colonialism and which is infiltrated everywhere, all of these pieces, right? And then the clown, that role of the clown as magician or magician as clown, like the way those are intertwined, as holding that space of being inside and outside of that control at the same time, and speaking truth to that power by going, well, actually, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it's like totally, like the trickster doesn't really have sides. I think, yeah, like as in, like you look at Chaplin and Hitler, like as a like and the great dictator, like a way to kind of like undermine authority. Like the trickster is there, and that capacity for presence in the space like keeps one's that I love the character Wit in the Stormlight Archive, like Brandon Sanderson. Like there's the character like this kind of like sacred fool that pops up as there's like a multiverse kind of going on, and he's always there. Yeah, kind of like there's a few things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about Circa, who were around when we were at uni. There's the clandestine insurgent rebel clown army. So they would like go into like GA protest spaces and de-escalate. They would de-escalate and also just like try and like just de-escalate and also fuck around a little bit, like with undermine an overreaching authority that is not serving life in a playful way. I'm kind of like not advocating anything that would flag me as anything other than the fool. So I'm
that kind of disrupting things doesn't necessarily mean going in and causing actual trouble or damage or anything like that. You can disrupt like you can disrupt a depression, like a depressive, an oppressive vibe by bringing in laughter, right? You can disrupt a brewing fight by reminding everyone that we're all human by breaking it with a joke sometimes. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and like street theatre performance, like literally going out and like that's just what I'd like to be involved in more is and like street performance for sure. There's Circa and and Charlie Chaplin. But also like there's the kind of the clown like the color I can't think of the tribe that the kind of like the sacred clowns are from in like on Turtle Island, but there would just like hurl abuse at the priests. It's like there was there was a ritual going on, high magic, very kind of we're leading souls towards divinity, we're doing this high magic, and the clowns would be like just like hurling abuse at them. It's like there has to be space for it, otherwise we end up with clowns in power. The trickster, like there has to be space for the trickster for sure, otherwise like it kind of like comes along and pulls the rug out from underneath you. Like
yeah. So at the beginning, before we started recording officially, I'd asked you how should I introduce you? Like, what should I? Is there a title I can use for you? And pulling from some of the words in your bio, I'd kind of said, oh, maybe divine fool, and you said, what about divine and wretched fool? And you mentioned the sacred and profane clown. And so, like, from a magical context and a personal context, like, what do those pieces mean to you? That divine and wretched fool and sacred and profane and clown, are they the same thing? Are they different things?
It's like like 100 like working with the tarot has been incredible. So it's like without the like the and the interrelationship being like different cards, so like the Hierophant and the Devil, they're as like kind of like they they're like, yeah, I don't know, like they're a bit like either sides of a pole, you know. It's like, and work you know, they need to work together in a really good way, otherwise pulled in either way, either side isn't healthy. um so kind of like profane and wretched, it's just like I kind of, it's just like deep roots wide world, right? It's like death, harvesting, that all comes from the kind of yeah, from the wretched spaces. And part of clown for me is like being in some really holy places and feeling it become incredibly stifling. You know, it's like the rigidity of it's incredible for, yeah, it's just like the we're just making up rules. We're just making up rules, and like people are like, oh yeah, okay. It's like, you know, it's like, I want to encourage anarchic calisthenics. Um, so like, if there's a little rule that the culture has, like maybe not jaywalking, or I don't know, maybe if there's a big fucking supermarket chain and they got those self checkout scanners, you know, just like just test a little rule here and there.
We can't, not not condoning anything illegal. Don't do anything illegal, folks.
Legal, but kind of also when if like a culture starts enforcing rules that perhaps aren't um, but moral, then a good dose of healthy kind of like anarchic calisthenics is probably going to serve us all well.
Well, it's practices. I'm thinking of practices like cis men wearing skirts or nail polish. Can be a little bit of breaking those ridiculous rules. Or like for me, I physically couldn't sit in most of my classes throughout university because I damaged my back. So I broke an unspoken rule. I spent the entire like second half of my degree taking my classes lead on the floor. So there are little things like that that you can do,
Yeah,
and then practice the things of going, where are the rules that are ridiculous?
yeah,
And then it's also that thing of which just because something's legal doesn't mean it's ethical as well, those questions.
absolutely. So there's like, you know, it's like the kind of the or like we have our own fucking authority
Yeah.
as black magic came about, voodoo magic came about because people were made to be slaves, and that was the only power they had against their oppressor.
Yeah. This is a thread of, there's a really weird tension nowadays in like witchcraft, in that so the word itself historically and still in quite a few parts of the world actually refers to malefica, to magic for harm. But in the last 50, 70 years in Anglo and European spaces and the neo-pagan spaces, we've reclaimed the word witch to actually be something positive. But it is still a word for magic and for people who don't have worldly power. It's a word, it's a type of magic which is rooted in relationship with the spirits and with the land. And it's a type of magic that doesn't have, it's not rooted in wealth or high connections, or like there are magical orders that are have like lots of fancy tools and lots of money and lots of worldly power. Witchcraft isn't about that. And there's this really weird space nowadays in that it's become picked up by capitalism and the commercialization and all of that. And a lot of it's become colonized to then be something that is cost you money. So,
Or is
sorry?
or is just costume.
Or it's just, yes. And it's the costume that costs the money,
Yeah.
and it's being sold as an aesthetic. Yeah. And it's that, sorry, I can't remember what piece it was you exactly that you reminded me of that, but I think it's all related. As you say, there are these rules that we're expected to follow. Some of them are laws, some of them are social rules, and some of them are absolutely ridiculous.
But there's so much there's so much of my spirit that has been like underserved by the wealth I was born by the kind of like Western capitalist culture, like that it's been knocked down so many times, and like it feels like the setup is there to do that. Probably is, you know. It's like the we've been like I feel you know I feel as a kind of like as a white person born in England, I felt for so many years so fucking disembodied, disconnected from the land, and just like there's hints of practices pre-Christian, nothing embodied. Did I have any elders in my community? No, like some, but nothing outside the kind of like conditioned reality of like farmed for capital. Like it's like, and then there's so so yeah, I think it's important to build up a relationship with oneself and one's relationship to like the spirits of nature, or like the forces within the psyche. Yeah, because we're the more people that I meet like that, kind of like that can connect and openly talk about it, the kind of like I feel the better world we live in. We were talking about time earlier on. Like there was friend divine ridiculous friend. It's like we're wizards. It's like we can go backwards through time. Like we can be going towards Eden. You know, like everyone is fucking blindly walking into an apocalypse. You know, we don't know which one, but in the back of pretty much everyone's mind, there's this fucking great spell that we're all walking into an apocalypse, because that's the way time is. It's like, no, we can use Eden as like as our destination, or don't have to be marching through time to apocalypse. Like
We can just be present here.
Present, connect, like divine falls, create, be in the space that we want to be. Like be in this, like be in the magic with each other. But there's so many kind of like spells like at large that it's hard to break people out of that. But if you can bring a bit of joy into a space, and then maybe be like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
be look after each other out there, or whatever. It's like, it's, if you can, I'd love to be able to empower people, yeah.
It's that. I remember why I started off on that thread about witchcraft as being like rooted in connection with the spirits, and that's it comes from underneath the systems of control. So yeah, to use that term very, very broadly, like the structures of the world that want us to be cogs in the machine, that kind of what we use the term witchcraft for today, right? That the cunning craft, the cunning folk craft, the folk magic, draws on all sorts of different things, but grows up from the earth, from the dirt, from need, from people. And there's a beautiful description in Emma Wilby's book. It's quite an academic text on familiar spirits, right? Fairies and familiar spirits. And she talks about how so often the stories would be that someone would be in need and they wouldn't have worldly power. And that need would call out to the spirits and the spirits would answer and they'd come and be present. And this reminds me actually of that what you were talking about, your art practice, your magical practice of going and being in those spaces, calling in clown to give that space of engaging in presence and play, calling in that being present in that space and working with the tarot cards, the Major Arcana, to connect with those forces and those places, out of a place of being outside of what those structures so often represent, right? And then bringing those spaces into shifting them into being more open and being more connective and more human.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know Pronoia by Rob Bresney?
No, rings a bell.
So it's like kind of creating these like how I imagine or how I imagine Greek culture would have been with different shrines and altars like along every street, or how some experiences of traveling around India was. It's like these kind of like spaces that reinforce particular vibration or like feeling that isn't fucking just consume. Like let's the like guerrilla fairy altars or something, like really like do some crochet around a tree, throw some crystals on it, write out an intent, and like let it echo. That's art. The point in which I stopped calling my magical practices or witchcraft, or when I started calling it art, I felt a lot more freedom to be a society. Like I felt it's like this it's like it's just like doing rituals outside the church. And like I lived in Glastonbury, it's like doing weird rituals out there, like, and it's like, it's a performance piece. It's it's like people don't know how to like the kind of like the I have spent a lot of time talking about my practices and not doing them so much. So it's I want to do them more, and often there's very few people that want to hear about it. So it's like, so I can be doing some weird ritual with some spirits that have inspired me with like apples and circles and water and whatever in some churchyard, and then someone asks me what's it, just it's some art. It's like but you're having your relationship with the world and your connections with the spirits, and like kind of how feeling out this interaction between yourself, the others, the space, what's brought into it. And yeah, I have a kind of like a real like, when I was a monastic, I built up kind of individual relationships with a lot of the kind of gods from the Indus region. So like Lord Ganesh is your friend. There's a lot of stuff with it, like Lord, just like for every kind of like temple ritual, there isn't necessarily like a banishing ritual to start off with, but Lord Ganesh is like looks after the space. So it's just yeah, but I would recommend building a relationship with Lord Ganesh to kind of like, 'cause he's fun, he's joyful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just remembering when you said that you looked after the elephant for a while, and bless her, I've forgotten her name. Um, but it would have been about that time I went up to a Kali puja, a full moon puja there, and afterwards on the way back down the hill through the woods, on as we came out, there was where the elephant was living, was staying, and one of the people tending her was there. And as we went past, the person tending the elephant said, "Oh, would you like a blessing?" And we all went, "Oh yeah, that would be lovely." So I went, and she gave me an apple, I think it was, and I had to hold it behind my hand and give it to the elephant when the blessing was done. And she put the tip of her trunk on my forehead, and it was just so soft. And then she snorted and just blew snot all over my face. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's a very tangible blessing. Thank you." And I was just covered in sticky elephant snot.
She's hilarious. Like, there was once this like very authoritative person that came to like in his suit, and like he wanted to investigate this and investigate the other, and like, you know, instill his particular flavor of control. And she grabbed him by, she had a muddy trunk, and she just grabbed his balls, and he had to like spend the rest of the day trying to like, you know, be this authority figure with a trunk, like a muddy trunk patch on his crutch.
Oh, bless it. Yeah, fabulous. It's Scandival is such a beautiful, beautiful place. And I did actually spend, I was supposed to be there for longer, but I couldn't manage it. I couldn't do it. Um, so I went on and spent some time there working. I think we ended up being there for about 3 days and were supposed to be there for 5. And the commitment was that you go and you do work for that community, and you attend all of the, I think it was 5 pujas a day, because we were there on an intensive thing. I'd gone along with a friend, and after the 3rd day we were getting up at 5 a.m. and going to bed at a time that made sense with that, right, with the dusk. But I could just feel my spirit just getting, I was just overwhelmed with it. It wasn't the right space for me to go that intense into that structure. But it was a beautiful experience. And the peace in the people who were there, like had that space and were there. And the main work that me and my friend were doing, the main things we were doing were cooking the food after the rituals. So people would bring food. I know you know this, and for the listeners, people would bring food for the rituals as a donation. The food would be given to the gods, and then the gods would bless it, and then that would be made into the food that would be eaten by the congregation. And so we'd be making the food afterwards, and mostly just chopping things, right? Because I'm not much of a cook. But it was just this sort of process of being present, being in service, and then going to these powerful rituals of connection, of opening, and what have you. And yeah, it was evidently not the right space for me, but the magic in that place and the connection to divinity in that place was just so beautiful, in not just in the rituals, but in the chopping of the food, in the cleaning out after the elephant, in the digging up the garden, pulling out the weeds. It was like in every aspect of it. And I think that's something that we miss in our Western culture so much, is the way in which divinity and magic can be present in the material, in the everyday, in the profane that is sacred.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's on us to kind of like to bring that into the world,
Yeah.
be it with um yeah, in whatever medium our kind of like art practice or magic takes form. It's like one of the practices that really like a lot of the kind of like tradition we talk about like craft after ritual. It's like within the like actually grounding yourself into the body with some kind of like craft, you know, like tying something together or like braiding, like making amulets. You know, it's like the work, the kind of like it's the you have the high ritual, lots of kind of like expansion, and then the food straight afterwards, which has been blessed, and then the like working, shoveling shit. Like your feet are in the dirt. Like it's you know, it's like it's this wretched, sacred kind of like you know, it's like you have to. I've spent a lot of my life not being very grounded.
Mm.
Uh, I'm kind of like learning more and more, or I'm becoming more grounded and more what I feel is embodied. Um, yeah, the more time I spend here. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's you know there's a lot of there's a lot of people talking about art and there's a lot of people talking about magic. Like, I think like you just really need to do it. Um, like,
Yeah.
like yeah, it's like do the breath work, do the like do the pranayama. Look at the candle, stare at the candle, focus your attention, like close everything off, like kind of, um, yeah. It's like when I talk about kind of like devotion or like this kind of like the projections of the psyche or like animus like so when someone is really into Hendrix and
Mm.
they put up posters on the wall and they you know they pick up guitar and then they start you know they start channeling Hendrix. It's like you can do that with all kinds of stuff. Like you can do that with Krishna, you can do that with like Cunninus, you can you know it's like it's built the you can do that with the Major Arcana. For me, the Major Arcana is like, or the Arcana is a perfect like set for like stage for or you know like the Rosarium Philosophorum. Like it's a codex for portals of transformation for the soul to become more and more. To say we have like three, like I imagine three paths. You've got like the path of transcendence. So it's like, oh, we're gonna sit in a cave, we're gonna become ascetic, we're gonna meditate, we're gonna like transcend all this shit, and you know, great, cool, all right, thanks, good input. Then you have like the bodhisattva path, which is like serving life. You know, it's like bringing it like let's push this thing forwards together. You know, there's various kind of like saints that have been examples of that. And then you kind of got like the left hand path, or like kind of like slightly which is in empowerment, or this is how I see it, and there like an interest like talking of the wretched and empowerment, like you know like the Abramelin work, like me, you know, it's like I want like there's a part. There's no way I'm going to do that particular ritual because it's not, you know, it's anachronistic. It's like not within the context of my reality. But the being able to like hold space for like for all one's demons, or like for kind of like the sins or the princes of hell, or however we want to personify um these kind of like you know these forces. Like if there's a certain there's a certain belief in me that if one kind of like confronts that within oneself, then one gains authority over that within the world. And that's something that I would like to, that's something that I will be investigating more, like uh, how does what is one eligible for in space creating or curation by really like ritualistically meeting all the demons that are within the kind of like the big stage. Um,
It's that piece, isn't it, about all of those aspects of life, right? The sacred and the profane, the wretched and the divine, the demons and the angels, like being alive, being present, being being human, really, right? It involves actually opening up. It's going to sound wrong, but like opening up to all of that, accepting all of that as part of experience. And I don't mean you have to go and worship demons or angels for that matter, right? Or anything like that, but about accepting that the material existence and the divine existence are all part of being alive. The wretched, as you call it, like your feet in the dirt, your roots deep in the dirt, which is the soil that has rotted down from things that have died before and is teeming with life at the same time. Like that's where we grow from.
yeah, I mean, but totally the demonic as well. Like these, like the we, you know, it's like one has to kind of like allow for like one has to really meet one's demons, otherwise you're gonna fucking project them. Otherwise, you know, they're gonna be around you, like, because yeah.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. As you mentioned mother earlier on, like Carly has kind of like really a relationship with mother has made me feel quite very very safe. Like, you know, like I feel that um that kind of, you know, it's like how does one build a rapport with an aspect or a spirit, like, and I think that comes from like devotional practices. So like the monastic, you know, it's like prior to the monastic life, I was playing around with little rituals, like, you know, like a few candles here and there, like how, and then it's like learned very elaborate ritual in the temple, like like the statues in like it's very advanced ritual magic that happens in kind of like temples from the Indus region. The statues are like seven metals, so they have like planetary attunements. Like the one offers all of the elements during the ritual. One singing in Sanskrit, so there's like the kind of the resonant vibration of the thing. There's a pujari, which would kind of like lead the ritual. Then they have an assistant, and then kind of like everyone is in the space focusing on that one thing. And so it's like, so you have the incense, you have the flame, you have the liquids, like you have the water, and then there's the kind of like the petals. So it's like there's this dance of kind of enchantment and enrapture, uh, like like creating this kind of like vortex where a kind of particular aspect of like divine consciousness within can be in that space. And yeah, I really recommend going to like checking out some kind of Indus region temple ritual, because it's the same but it's different. You know, it's like where I haven't read Moonchild. I kind of like, you know, I'm aware of it. That should we just start making simulacrums? Like what where, you know, it's like what do kind of like, yeah, is it Austin Osman Spear as well? Like I use sigils quite a lot. Sigils help me a great deal. So I'll write out a statement of intent. I'll cross out the repeating letters. Then I'll make a graphical image of what's left, and then leave it. I can't. One, yeah.
Yeah, that's the method that Austin Osman Spare um, describes. Yeah.
This is one that I can't remember what it is, but I trust that trust that it's working. I think Neil Gaiman did an album cover for Robbie Williams once, and he just put some sigil on it and just put it out everywhere.
Do you mean because I know Grant Morrison did a lot of hyper sigils. So his comics were they were sigils, the Invisibles, the series The Invisibles. He described as a hyper sigil. So that was like a great long sigil for transformation. And I remember reading that in my first term at university, and just feeling it rewire my brain.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hear that. Like
I
it's
don't know
been
that game.
my thinking as well. Like it's incredible. Like it's such a this idea. I, like there's Jonathan. There's some ideas that arrived in me around the same time. It was reading The Invisibles and also reading Jonathan Lilly, who was this like guy that invented the language we use to speak to dolphins. He was like kind of would use LSD and ketamine intravenously whilst in an isolation tank with dolphins in it, and like just he like a particular type of pioneer. Um, but he would speak of the solid state entity and the organic state entity, and so like with the Invisibles, I think they're fighting entropy, but
Mm.
with rather than good evil. So it's like the battle against entropy, or like this Jonathan Lilly's like solid state entity versus the organic state. So there's like a off-world AI that's kind of like continually whispering technological development to eventually take over this kind of like organic state, to turn it into a solid state singularity, which is kind of like something that I love.
An amazing story, right?
Yeah, it's just so much better than good and evil. It's like, okay, so we're going to war with each other because actually AI is whispering in our ear, blow each other up so that we can develop technology even quicker to blow each other up so that it can take over. Fuck, what a story.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one. And it's that, like, as you say, it comes back to that the world includes demons, right? Um, and a lot of what we describe as demons when we're talking about spirits historically would have just been spirits. They were nature spirits and beings that of the underworld, of the upper world, that then got classified as demonic. So we've got these two pieces going on of like there are spirits that we call demons that aren't evil. They're just another set of spirits that have been described as evil. And then we've got that thing that we're talking about, that there are these things, these aspects of ourself and of the world that have that wickedness, that can cause trouble and disruption. And we need to recognize it. Otherwise, what's in us, otherwise we'll project it out. And we need to recognize it's there. Otherwise, well, if we just ignore it, then we're not engaging with reality and with truth. The other thing is that we're also not able to look after ourselves and the people that we care about. We're not able to deal with it if we don't recognize that is in that there are people out there that want to cause trouble. There are impulses out there that are harmful, and all of that is part of being alive. So yeah, I'm like, there's an interesting thing here between the demons that aren't demonic, they've just been called that, like we might better call them daimons from the old Greek, and then the demonic that is that aspect that we're talking about when we're talking about it from a poetic Christian root of Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
no, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Oh,
I love these. I love all these pieces, and the way in which language has those multifaceted what's
yeah,
its.
totally. Like, and the the little kind of like uh lessons that are passed down through games and sayings that it's like that you have to kind of like listen out. So manslaughter. There's a great clown called like Goulier, and I really want to go to some of his workshops. He's like a fucking wizard, like Sacha Baron Cohen, like learned with him, and like he's great. He talks about um, like all those that got ostracized, like so when one could like challenge when the clowns could come in and challenge power or speak truth to power. There's the Buffon. So the Buffon around 1800s, like everyone was ostracized from polite society. The kind of like the sex workers, the kind of like people who are autistic, trans people, like just anyone that didn't quite fit this kind of like fascistic vibration. Now this we're seeing kind of like elements of this vibration coming out in society now, and it's not new. It's like people will fucking burn for this. It's like it's a thread that goes through kind of like human history, and the kind of the sensitive people. There's a lot that get pushed out, and yeah, there would be an opportunity for these people to come and perform for the aristocracy, for the kings, like once a year, and they would come in and they would like try and kill them with laughter. Like they would make a fight, and this is supposedly where man's laughter or manslaughter comes from. Like they were trying to like make them laugh so hard with like that they would have a cardiac arrest. Like this is this is what they're kind of like. There's yeah the play of the Buffon. So yeah, I think it's not sure what I'm trying to say. That they're a very these are kind of like quite scary times at the moment geopolitically, and yeah, it's good to be empowered with whatever we've got.
Yeah. And as you say, like that's something, it's all of that, what comes up from the roots, while our ability to be present and our ability to be with each other and to seek fun. What was it you called it? Mining for fun,
Yeah,
seeking the joy. Um, and there's so I'm really loving this conversation, and I'm loving this conversation for so many reasons. One of which is, of course, my name, Halo Quinn. So Halo was a name that was given to me when I went to my first big witchy event a week after I turned 18, and it's a riff off my legal name. But Quinn, I chose as the second part because Halo Quinn to me sounds like Harlequin, and of course the
yeah,
Harlequin is the patchwork fool who, through the Commedia dell'arte, became a tragic lover figure. But it's that those two pieces of playfulness and performance and love and that seeking of love and connection, like plus the multicolored patchwork thing, because I always feel like I'm a bit of a patchwork soul myself. That's where that comes from. But also, so there's that piece, like is one of the reasons this conversation is really resonating with me and means a lot to me. And another, of course, is that the Wretched and the Divine. I'm currently writing a book about a goddess that I've been working with for much longer than I've been speaking about her. I mentioned her briefly. She's got a ritual in Crimson Craft in my most recent book, and that's Babylon. And strictly speaking, she's known as an occult goddess. She came out of is in Thelema. She's a Thelemic goddess. But Babylon is known as her name comes from the Enochian, the language of the angels, meaning wicked. That's why it's spelt the way it is. And comes from the name of the ancient city of Babylon. So there's when the city was presented as basically as a goddess figure, a divine demonic feminine figure by the Christian who was writing about the wickedness of all that is pagan and that he didn't like, which is empowered, embodied, earthy, sexuality and pleasure of life, and like life and death and all that's in between, just being alive. And so Babylon kind of grew out of this thread and inherited the ancient pagan roots of Inanna and Ishtar and those goddesses as well. And so one of the things that I'm loving about this conversation is it resonates so much with her, in that she is all that is life and death. She is both the hedonistic pleasure of being alive, that how the love, the bliss, the fun, the joy of it. And the fun and the joy of it doesn't get talked about a lot when she's talked about. But it's also the acceptance of the whole. It is unconditional love of all of it, which also includes the wretchedness, the dirt, the demonic inner aspects of ourselves, our shadowed parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves we don't like, the parts of life we don't like, the shit and blood and the rotting down into the soil, but also the roses that grow up back out of that. Like she's all of these pieces, and holds all of those. And she's a very often overlooked within the broader magical and pagan community, because she's seen as this, as being like a bit mostly talked about by people who are being dark and edgy, and she's seen as quite difficult to connect with because of a lot of associations with this idea that in order to work with Babylon, in order to be devoted to Babylon, you need to be promiscuous and getting drunk all the time. You've got to be the stereotypical bad girl or bad boy. And that's not true. But it's a lot of how she's been presented. So she's been overlooked quite a bit. And when you come back to like, why has she gotten that association? It's like, well, because that was a rebellion against the rules and the expectations, particularly placed on women, but and on queer people at that time, when Crowley was writing about her in the early 1900s, and she was solidifying into who she is as we know her today. But what does it mean to go against the rules and expectations today? Well, it means to go against whatever expectations are not true to you. And so for some people, that does mean being polyamorous, or like being a slut or whatever. And for other people, it means being monogamous and it means being true to yourself. Because she is about embracing all of who you are and all of what life is, and being fully and wholly alive for as long as we can be, as long as we are. And knowing that when we cease to be embodied living in this body, like that life force, that power, it continues on in that cycle, in that place, whether we have part of us that reincarnates or not, whether we just look at it on the material level. Our bodies will return to the earth and feed life. Death is part of life. And so she holds all of these spaces. So yeah, there's so much of what you've talked about resonates for me with her. And I know before we started officially, I'd mentioned her and you said you wanted to hear about her. So yeah, thank you.
I love hearing you talk about her. Actually, I can kind of like feel the feel the presence in you. Like there's a deep joy there. So yeah, I'm kind of like all for hearing more about her, for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to helping bring her into the world, and well, bring her into the world. She's already in the world, but bring her to more people's awareness, bring more people to her door if they want to meet her.
Halo, you have a book about her coming out, because like there's this Carolyn Lovewell that does existential kink, and she's like been talking about her a lot, and like it's like she seems to be she's come up with some really cool theories and ideas, and like, and she's on the Babylon stream at the moment, and like, yeah, I didn't like, I kind of, instinctively, like, this is where I feel like I have been cultured to turn away from Babylon, because it probably is really empowering.
Yeah. So I knew Carolyn. I knew her before under an older name, and I followed her work for quite a long time, but haven't engaged with it. Like we sort of, her work went off in a slightly different direction to where I was, and it seems like, from what I've been seeing of her stuff more recently, like that we've kind of ended up on similar paths at this point. So I'm going to actually reach out to her. Now that you said that, I'll check out her work and reach out to her and see about that aspect, because yes, I signed the contract today, while we're recording this. So by the time this episode comes out, it will be like, I'll have announced it. That I'm writing. I have written most of, and I'm working through all the rituals to make sure that they work well and amending them so they're, and the practices and things. A book in the Pagan Portals series, published by Moon Books, as an introductory book to Babylon, that includes a chapter on her history in terms of where the imagery came from, on her lineage, so where her roots like fed into that imagery. So Inanna, Ishtar, Astarte, Aphrodite, Venus, how that lineage came down to her. And then more like contemporary writers and contemporary practitioners and queer relationships to her, because she's often seen as like a woman's thing. So, but she is incredibly queer, actually, deeply, in my experience. But then my experience of the world is queerer than people expect. And then practical things of how to connect with her and how to actually get to know her, because it's all very well and good, as you say, like, we can talk about these things and we can read about these things and we can read their stories, we can read about their history, but we only get to know those beings and those gods and the magic by doing the magic, by being present with them, by meeting them and interacting with them, building our own relationships. So yeah, I'm very, very passionate about supporting other people making their own relationships and building their own connections. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
There's the crim. So I saw an image that you posted the other day, and was that Crimson Coven?
Yeah, so I run a series of, I run classes and things under the banner of the Crimson Coven, which is part of the Enchanted Academy, and it's working with embodied magic, sacred sensuality, and very, very gentle sacred sexuality and sexual healing. So Crimson Craft is my book on that, and I wrote it because there are so many spaces that you can go into that are quite extreme, and they're like spaces to heal sexually, but there's this thing that you have to kind of go into the whole, like, get naked in a room of strangers sort of. If it's not true of the space, it feels like it's going to be true. And sorry?
Do you know of Ista?
Yeah.
Yes, I would probably like steer clear of Ista.
Yeah, because they hold those sorts of spaces, and it's
spaces.
Yeah, those sorts of spaces are amazing for people who are ready for that kind of work, who have already worked through stuff around boundaries and consent and knowing themselves, and two, who it's true for them that that's a space that they need to be in. But for many of us, that isn't a space for us. Like myself, that's not a space for me. And I still deserve to be sexually whole and to be in touch with that divine eros that runs through me. And so does everyone else. without having to feel like we need to go past our boundaries and past what is right and true for us in order to fit those expectations, that being sexually free means sleeping with lots of people. It doesn't. It means being true to yourself.
Thanks. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. You've started interviewing me now.
This is what we're here for. It's like, yeah, it's kind of nice to collaborate. It's nice to
It is.
have more relations, more connections. You know, it's and like I kind of have, yeah, like faith's a good thing. Like it's like, okay, like embody the clown. Like there's this kind of like naive, this naive faith. Like how can I approach a god like as a child? You know, it's like with high hopes and yeah, an aspiration towards like loving connection. And that can be quite charming.
Yeah, I think so. And what I found, there's a lot of people that are worried about getting it wrong or upsetting or offending a deity. And it's like, well, you know what? Today, in the world that we're in, we're doing our best. And often, like you've got the Indo-European, the Hindi spaces, you've got like polytheistic spaces and temples and spaces like Scandervale where there are structures. But I'm that's those aren't my gods. I get on very well with a couple of them. And I've just had a little Kali statue turn up in my life. And I'm like, oh, hello. Okay. But you know, for those of us that are maybe working with the Welsh gods or with Babylon outside of a Thelemic space, or even with the Norse gods, like we don't have structures, we don't have set rituals and rules. We're working out this relationship with those deities within, and we're coming out of a space where we were taught to fear the gods, right? So people are coming at it with a lot of worry about offending them and upsetting them. And in my experience, actually, if they turn up, generally speaking, they're just quite pleased to work with you and help you learn to do better. Um, and and I say that with the caveat of by do better, they generally like it if you show up, if you're there with them and you want to
It's
spend
like
time with them.
the it's from experience in the temple, the many, you know, every day, many years, the integrity of the person, like the integrity, the authenticity, like how one can articulate oneself, like within like kind of like thought, word, and deed. That's more that, you know, that's better than any kind of like ordained structure. You know, people would come into the temple, sound absolutely atrocious when they sung to the gods. Like they would sound awful, but they did it with so much devotion that all of a sudden, like the temple just kind of like lit up. And then there was, you know, these very kind of articulate within the craft of the art, and you know, very refined singing voices, and the power wasn't there because that kind of, you know, their vibration, the intent wasn't attuned to that particular, you know, it's like, oh great, oh, you know, there's there yeah, they're kind of like working beyond the like performing to reason or performing to like the aesthetic quality of the culture. That is, you know, it's we're not kind of like so yeah, totally like don't don't worry about offending the gods. Like find a way, find how you relate to the divine and build up a relationship. It's just like simple, you know. It's,
Yeah. Put your heart into it. That
yeah,
anyone that you want to be in relationship with, be they God, human, or other than human, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I suppose, would you say that's true of clown as well? and of being the divine or wretched fool. Just put your heart into it. There are skills, obviously, there are skills to doing it well and inviting other people into that space. Like there are ritual skills that you can develop if you're holding space for other people.
It's like I think we mentioned like the like ah like the tower as the house of God. Like what can you bring into the space? How can you embody Babylon?
Mm.
How can you embody the clown? How can you play with the imagination and see what like um see what wants to be inspired in the moment? Like, you know, maybe you could like ride with a fairy or something if that's in the space, and like, and you know, play it out, like follow the joy, like, yeah, really follow the joy. And you know, there's a practice that my phone is running out of battery, and I'm using my
Ah, okay.
um
I'll pause this for a second. So your battery was dipping out and my internet glitched. So I think that might be the spirits and the gods suggesting that perhaps it is time to take a break from staring at screens. And here it is gloriously sunny. So I may take that as a hint to go and soak up a bit of sun. Maybe I'll take my ukulele out onto the prom and have a go at bringing a bit of a giggle. I can't play it properly, but I can have a go.
yeah, yeah, do it,
Yeah.
clown. Like, it's if I took a guitar to someone the other day. I can't play guitar at all, but like, just you can play with it. It's fine.
Yeah. And play with it. I like that. So I wanted to ask you, was there anything that you wanted to just to say, just to feel like to wrap the conversation up? Um,
Um, yeah, I mean, just like find ways to come to one's presence. And that's kind of like, for me, that's breath work, pranayama, candle gazing, tarkana, I think it's, or tratika. Very simple kind of like things to do, but really effective ways of kind of like orienting consciousness. Then explore like kind of, you know, for clown, like maybe be in your room, like explore what brings you joy. Like how can you, yeah, how does one sort of like imagine everything that you own, every piece of clothing has a voice. Imagine there's like a you know, a spirit, you know, it's all, you know, animate. Like have a you know, see what brings the most joy, and put on that silly scarf and like those silly shoes and go out and follow the joy, you know, and then come back. You know, you have drops, flops, and uh something else. My mind's gone blank, but like, yeah, just keep keep checking in with yourself. Keep checking in with like the other. Is there a connection there? And then find the joy that's like really simple. Simple clown. Like clown is simple. You just gotta be present, connect, follow the joy.
present with some joy.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend? I mean, this is something for me um, that I I delight and love the reverent irreverence and the foolishness and the silliness. I love it, love it, love it. And I do really struggle because my natural default in the world of being way of being in the world is, well, as you once told me, like that priestess space of quite like it's quite serious on the
Mm.
surface.
Really sit like within the tarot, like high priestess is like really serious.
Yeah. But for me, there's joy inside.
Mm.
But so when I tell a story, it's this fascinating moment that the people listening, if I'm doing a good job, more often than not, everyone goes still and quiet. And it kind of feels like you're offering up into almost into a void. Into it's not a void, it's full, but you're often offering up into stillness. And it's not until you're finished that you actually get any kind of response, and sometimes not until afterwards, and sometimes not for many months afterwards when someone says, oh, you told me that story, it really touched me, because it encourages stillness. Now, very occasionally, the way I've told a story has included there's been a piece of humor or there's been something, and the response has been laughter. And that feedback begins to feel like a conversation, and I love it so much. And I love bringing that smile. But I am more of a serious, like telling very serious myths, right? Very important legends about like and
Yeah,
folklore
very
about
hot gods.
yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
you should like behave yourself, and or the wild hunt will come and take you away, right? Like it yeah, or I'm having to like hold that stillness to hold a ritual space or whatever. So I find it quite difficult to then allow myself to move out of that into the silly space, into the playful space that other people will encounter as playful, right? Outside of my personal relationships and like people who know me really well, in a public way, without feeling like I'm being really vulnerable. Like that playfulness is a very intimate space for me, where I'm not controlling the space, I'm being with it. So how do we move into that? I think that's the key, isn't it? I've hit on it. How do I move into that, allow myself to be in that vulnerable space where people might laugh at me or they might laugh with me?
I think one like there's a game, there's a dolphin training game. It's like it's at first it's kind of like learning to like look for laughter. Like it's taken a while to recondition myself to think, oh, everyone's laughing at me. Great. it's like, it's like it take a while. It's like it's just being in the space and like people were laughing at me. Great. That's oh, people were laughing at me. Great. That's what I want, rather than like, oh, people were laughing at me, I must hide away, like
Mm.
I must be doing something wrong. And so there's a game, like you can play it with like multiple, like you need a few people. And so it's like, the hot or cold, warmer or colder. So there's 3 rounds to the game. The first round, the group decides what the person that has gone out must do with an object in the room. So say it's say it's put the box on their head. So they come into the space and they have to interact with all the objects, and you play warmer or colder with clapping. And the closer they get to putting the box on their head, the louder you applause. And once they get the box on their head, they get a really loud applause. Then the next round of the game is, instead of applause, is laughter. So they're kind of like, so the person coming into the performance space is knows that there's an act that they have to do that has been agreed by everyone else to that they will laugh at. So it's like, okay, so it's putting the box on the head again, and it's like you get close to it and then it's like, everyone starts laughing. The third round is you just go into the space blank, and so you kind of like have to interact with the space in novel ways and see what people laugh at, and you have to connect with them, you have to make eye contact, you have to feel them, you have to like weave between this shared imagination where a box might become a helicopter, or but they have to believe in the story. So this kind of like Yeah, I mean, one would be to kind of like see laughter as something that you want to hear. You know, it's like there's laughter being the sign that everything's clear. You know, it's like, you know, when you're old, when you fall over and people don't laugh. Like, you know, laughter's the sign that, oh, it's okay. You know, laughter is the way that we regulate ourselves in community with each other. So it's like, you know, it's, yeah, I've kind of often felt that I've been kind of like I've been othered through laughter.
Mm.
You know, that's it. I don't think there's that wound's gonna be there. I've grown around it. Um, yeah, no, kind of like, yeah, like, you know, yeah, kind of joy as a vibration to bring into the world through, you know, like Krishna's a great god. Krishna gives you food and dances and like is really joyful. It's like, you know, it's like how, yeah. And the fool, you know, the fall is a good way into kind of a like a ritual exploration through kind of like consciousness with like Gnostic theatre. You know, if we talk about the practices that we were doing earlier on, like if falls a, how does the fool play the high priestess?
Mm.
And it's like, how does the fool play death? You know, how can we clown the tower? How can we clown the world? You know, it's like, how can, yeah. So it's just just kind of like giving oneself a little bit of grace to make mistakes, and like, and then it's like people love mistakes. Like, that's, you know, if like slapstick, it's, yeah, it's like I'm trying to uh I guess say just like um to really enjoy the novelty of like being present with someone and trying to connect in a playful way, because like we're not going to have that same experience again, right? So like, fucking be here and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember that laughter is a shared experience and it doesn't have to be a weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an incredible buffer as well. I kind of like remember reading Dion Fortune's Psychic Self Defense and finding it's like, it was really good. You know, exercise, diet, laughter. Laughter's incredible. Like, it's um yeah, it's like, learn to be present with your diaphragm and breathe and laugh. Like, really feel what laughter feels like in every cell of your body, and like maybe imagine it up and down the spine as like some golden light, and like really laugh yourself into a golden bubble. Like, it's, yeah,
Okay.
that's fun practice.
I got that. All right. I think I can do that. Just so so be so this is the practice would be to like breathe into feel, be aware of your diaphragm and feel that like laughter bubbling up.
Yeah, so like, yeah, totally. So like, so breathe it. You know, like there's a lot of emotion around that area. Like, there's a lot of power there. So if you can kind of think of like drawing a thread between the top of your head and like your perineum, moving energy, like it's like a golden light going up and down your spine. Breathe in, like breathe it in and out into a bubble, and it's hey, you're silly with it, you
Yeah.
know. Like, what does laughter feel like in your throat? What does laughter feel like in your ankles? What does laughter feel like in your wrists? You know, laugh yourself into a bubble of mischief. Like what would that feel like? So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. That is such a precious, magical practice that I think I will certainly go away and do. And I hope people listening have a go and let us know how you get on.
Yeah. One last thing. Like, there's within all of my kind of like magical practice, there has always been this kind of like belief that I don't like that what is best for me, what is beyond my imagination. Like, I kind of, there's providence. Like, there's there is there are there the mystery is greater than my imaginings, and so are the blessings, you
Yeah.
know. uh, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The mystery is greater than my imagination. And my imagination's pretty great.
Yeah, this is
Oh, thank you so much for today, Danny. It has been such a long time. I don't think we've ever had a conversation this long, even when we were at uni together. We sort of like passed in momentary things and spent sort of brief periods of beautiful interactions. Um,
yeah, I mean, you're someone that I have like always admired, and I love to see your work. And yeah, it's been really, yeah, beautiful to connect with you. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
well, thank you. Where can people, if they want to come and find you and your clown and your art and your topography of tarot? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
where can people find you?
I'm playing around in Berlin. I'm kind of like I'm on Instagram at the underscore faceless underscore monk. Uh, so yeah, it's like clown is also a mask, and like it's, yeah, smallest mask in the world. Like it's good for exposure, like for revealing. It's anyway. There. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you. I'll put links in the description for people to find you. And to I know you wanted to give a shout out to the Divine Ridiculous troupe as well. You've mentioned them.
Yeah.
So where can people find them?
Divine Ridiculous on Facebook. They're amazing. Like Dan, like Hernandez is just like next level clown. He's just yeah, it's just an incredible performer. Like, and yeah, it has his library is incredible as well. Like, it's like this the Invisibles, Prometheus. I think he's born on the same day as Crowley. He's a fucking person. So yeah, Dan's great. Like, Dan's great. You should definitely check out Divine Ridiculous because they're really fucking awesome practice.
Awesome. Oh, very cool. So, thank you, Danny. Thank you to the Divine Fool and to all of the beings that have inspired us today and inspired our practice and continue to do so.
Yay!
Yay. And a special thanks to the tarot and all the beings of the tarot.
Thank Halo for kind of like for building this kind of like magical network of community and connection. Like, we need it, and yeah, kind of appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much. Well, for those of us listening, remember to laugh with that golden light and bubble up a golden bubble and come and check in with me if and see if I've been brave enough to be vulnerably silly and playful at some point and actually live up to my chosen namesake. And if you would like to be part of the magical community and join in the conversations, come along to live monthly circles on various topics, including fairy work and crimson craft embodied magic, and to follow along with the journey as I reveal behind the scenes from Babylon, the book that I'm working on, and the music that I have written and produced for her, then join me in the Enchanted Academy. The link is below, or you can find it at haloquinn.net tea, because tea is magic. I do like a good acronym.
Yeah, no, and that tea.
That is tea, and there was indeed tea in my teacup.
Tea.
So until next time, may your path be enchanted, may your world be full of play and joy, and may you always be brave enough to be all of who you are. See you next time.